Hello and welcome to this week's negotiation nugget. Today I am joined by my friend Lucy in the background, and I'm doing this negotiation nugget from Perth. So welcome, and today's topic I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on is the 5 aha moments that you need to reach to negotiate better. Now, aha moments, we've all had them. They're those micro moments of realization that something that we thought was clear has actually now become super clear. It's the experience that you have in your body when you thought you knew something and then you realize you didn't, and now you actually know what it actually means. And that clarity is a felt experience in the body rather than an intellectual experience of knowledge in the mind. So in this nugget, I'm going to spend 10-15 minutes to go through the 5 ahas that I have found through my own career that help me understand more about negotiation and have elevated my impact as a result of those aha moments. And it's something as a trainer of negotiation skills that from a delegate experience, I really want you to think about, is this true for me? Have I had this experience? If I've experienced negotiation training before, or if I'm yet to experience negotiation training, what do I need to be aware of to be a better negotiator? Now that we've got aha moments clear and we know what they are and those moments of clarity that we have, the 5 areas that I want to talk to today, I'm going to just put on a chart for you to be able to see right now. Okay, so first one I want to take you through is way of being. Now, what do I mean by that? Is one of the things that I realized quite late on, and I wish I'd had this aha moment a lot earlier in my career, is that negotiation isn't just about what you do, it's about who you become. Now, why that is I'll take you back to an example when I was in my early 20s, when I was first trained in negotiation skills. I'd been through a 4-day program that put me through my paces. And at the time, I came out of that program thinking, great, I know exactly how I need to negotiate. I'm going to do this. And I went straight into application mode, all very intellectual, IQ heavy in my thinking. And what I didn't apply was EQ, the EQ that was required to make me more effective in my delivery of those negotiation skills, because I was more present to the impact on others based on the way I negotiated. Now, the consequence of coming hot out the gate and being young and naive was that internally with my stakeholders, I got named and known for being a bit of a Rottweiler when it came to negotiation. Now, that's not really the reputation or the narrative that you want having in your organization or how your stakeholders perceive you, but it made me realize much later on that actually negotiation wasn't just about doing, it was about who you were being. So that regulation of your emotions, that regulation of the inner chimp inside that wants to come out of its cage and say what it needs to say when it's been triggered. And learning emotional intelligence, learning how to navigate those feelings, navigate those emotions, and recognize what you need to do to maintain an environment that is conducive to creating value really requires you to think about who are you being in those moments when you are triggered, in those moments when you are in a high pressured environment, in those moments where the stakes are high. So the realization being negotiation is not what you do, but it's who you become. And it's why I've got the Value Negotiator as the brand for my business, because it's not only the identity of what the outcome is, creating value and negotiating for value, but it's also about becoming the value negotiator. So when you're leaning into the opportunity to work with collaborating partners, that you're taking that mindset and that way of being into the negotiations. The next one I want to move on to is the learning versus performance goals. And I don't think I'd really understood that there were different objectives that you need to take out of your learning experience. One is the recognition that once you've got knowledge around negotiation and having those skills, you've got to put it into practice. But if you set yourself performance outcomes right out the gate without actually having the opportunity to practice your skills, you're doing yourself a disadvantage. One, because it's unlikely you'll get the best results from your very first negotiation after taking on new skills. Secondly, you're not measuring what you're learning and how you're getting better at that. So for example, if I liken it to running a marathon, if you set yourself a time to achieve in a marathon and you've never run a marathon before, you've got no baseline for your body's capability, your body's way of operating. You could push yourself and you could beat yourself up if you didn't hit that performance goal. But what you should have actually done in your first marathon experience is set yourself a learning goal. So how much am I training? Am I putting the kilometers into my legs? Am I learning about my nutrition and how I need to build stamina? And then when I get my first time in a negotiation environment, and if I take this to the marathon, how did I do? How am I measuring how well I did and using that as a baseline for continuous improvement? So you get your marathon time, and then the next time you go to do a marathon, you set yourself a performance goal. Same is true for negotiation. Are we setting learning goals versus performance goals? Most organizations put their teams through negotiation training and straight into, here's your performance goal, here's the outcome that you want, which is great if people have been negotiating and measuring their performance previously and have got clarity around the baseline and have been applying those skills. But if the discipline of applying the skills hasn't been cultivated, if there's learning goals of how am I planning, how much time am I setting for planning each time I go into negotiation, how much do I understand the other party, what information did I draw this time versus last time, all of that information is contributing to your learning goal. And once you've developed more learning habits, then you can convert them into performance goals. So that actually when it comes to delivering under pressure, you can perform because you've applied all those learning goals, and then it makes the execution significantly easier. Moving on to the third one, it's around knowing versus doing. Now, I train a number of delegates each month in negotiation skills and recognize that when they walk out, they think they know. I know what to do. It's all great. I've got the knowledge, no problem. What we've done is raise their awareness. And for a short time afterwards, they'll be focused on conscious application of that knowledge, new knowledge. Okay, I'm going to do something different. Now, the key distinction that I want to draw out here is that knowing and doing are very different. You can know how to do something, but the actual doing of it isn't the exact same experience. You go, okay, I'm just applying it. What do you mean, Glenn? I'm applying the knowledge that I've learned. I'm doing what I need to do. And that is what I call conscious application. But true knowing comes from being able to then not only observe the application that you applied consciously after learning something, but then look at who am I being frame by frame in the moment around that activity. Now, I'll give you an example. So recently I was buying some services for my own business. So I was the purchaser and I was having a conversation with a service provider. They were the seller of their services. And I could see, being a negotiator, exactly the positioning that was being done up front and set up in advance. So I was already primed what to expect on our consultation call. I'd watched a video talking me through exactly what the call was going to be about, what I didn't need to worry about. So don't worry, you're not going to be sold to in this consult call. It's merely problem solving. So the opportunity to get on the call meant I was primed and I understood what the other party was going to expect from me and what I can expect from them. The offer at the end of the call was presented in response to the information I was provided. And I could see that there was seeding of a time pressure. Here's this offer, it's only available for this amount of time. Once that time runs out, the price goes up and that offer is no longer available to you. I could see and feel what my body was experiencing, all whilst observing what was happening to me in that moment, in that negotiation scenario. And that's the difference between knowing versus doing, going from conscious application to embodied application. So in that moment, I could choose to observe what was happening to my body, the exact priming that I would expect to be done, the positioning of the offer, the way it's inducing an emotion in me of scarcity, of I need to act, otherwise I'm going to miss out. And in that moment, I could remain calm and I could observe it and I could choose my actions accordingly. Now, that's the distinction between true knowing, is taking yourself out of the immediate, hey, I've learned a new skill and I'm just going to do it consciously, but not from a place of embodiment, not where I can actually witness myself in the process of the negotiation being underway and then choosing my actions from a place of embodying the knowledge I've already got. It's like creating a program where you know the skills, but because you've mastered the habit of doing them over and over again, you can witness what your body's doing and what you're saying. So it becomes so much more powerful. The moving on to step 4 around, not step 4, the fourth aha that you need to reach yourself to negotiate better is recognizing it's not about you and it is. So the key realizations that I've had over my career is that negotiation is absolutely about the other party's interests. It's getting to know what's going on in their world, what are their needs, what's that need that needs to be fulfilled for them, not just what they're saying on the surface, but what's actually going on, what's important to them, what's important to the other stakeholders in the process. So you are shifting your energy from not what do I want, but what do they need and what am I in a position to give them and how am I effectively going to trade that in order to give them what they want, but get what I want in return. That's all great. But if it's all about you, all about them, if it's not about you, how can it then be about you? And what I want to say here is we often go in with the view that it's one or the other, like it's me, I've got to focus on what I need. How am I going to ask for what I want? What am I going to get in return? All about my world, my world, my world, my world. But if we shift our focus to the other party and focus on their world, then how is it still about us? And the way it is still about us and the realization and the aha that you have to have is it's absolutely everything about them. But the way it's about you is your ego needs to take a back seat when it comes to negotiation. That you have to choose how you're programming yourself so that your responses are appropriate for the situation. If I combine it back to the way of being, if you want to be someone who's a collaborator, in that moment when someone's being competitive, you've got to choose consciously, how am I going to show up? Is my ego, my chimp, going to start resisting and start competing back because behavior is triggering the behavior and response in them and vice versa? So am I recognizing myself in the moment and then managing myself? Because it is all about how I manage my ego, because my ego is not going to negotiate effectively. I need to be the one that negotiates. So recognizing that you need to choose your programming, focus on the other party, but absolutely recognize it is also about your own humility, your own emotional regulation and management of yourself. And then finally, the fifth aha that I want you to give yourself the opportunity to hopefully reach is the recognition that it's power with, not power over. And what that means is that if we break it down to a human level, we all want to be valued. Every single human being on this planet wants to be seen, heard, understood, and therefore that sense of you see me, you hear me, you understand me, you know what I need to feel valued and have a place in the world. Now, if we recognize that, often we can take two stances. We can take a view of I know what they want, and therefore I can be the person that has control over giving that or not, or withholding that. And that's all fine and well if you're in a competitive negotiation environment. But if you're looking to create long-term sustainable partnerships, you can't do it with a view of its power over the other party. You've got to understand that need to be valued is a two-way street, and actually the focus has got to be around how do you exchange that value with each other, rather than the power of, hey, how am I going to get you to do what I want you to do, without actually being party to creating power with you. The best way to do that, to do power with rather than power over, is to help reduce the resistance that your other party is going to put up. Part of that is naming the obstacles that they are likely to, objections and obstacles that are likely to be in their way. When we name the objections that the other party has, when we name the challenges that they're going to find difficult to overcome, there is no resistance, but there's an opening for evaluation. What can we do here? In what way could you find a way forward? Because I know this is going to be difficult for you. Recognizing that the narrative you have matters also. So power is something that is perceived, and it's also something that could exist in reality, actual power versus perception of power. But it's your narrative of what you make power mean to you that determines the outcome you get. If you are talking about, I want power over somebody, then you're going to take a stance that's more likely to lead to value being captured, protected, or destroyed. But when you're talking about how can I create power with you, the focus then becomes on how are we working together to look to create value longer term. So perception versus actual, keep that in mind, because other people's experience of you is ultimately their reality, but you have to then consciously choose what those are. So just to circle back, I've gone slightly over the 15 minutes, the 5 aha moments that you need to reach. Now, I say you need to reach them, and it's going to be something that will be a felt experience rather than an intellectual understanding. So what I'm imparting to you now is absolutely an intellectual knowledge transfer and information. It will only make sense to you when you allow yourself to sit with it and then observe your negotiations as you come to them in the coming weeks and months. Give yourself an opportunity to absorb this information and determine whether or not you've had an embodied felt experience around each of those 5 ahas. Because if you haven't, you're still very much in the knowledge space rather than the being space, the doing versus the being. So give yourself that opportunity. Let me know how you go. Any feedback on this, please give me a shout. Any topics you want me to cover, I'm happy to address them in future negotiation nuggets. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to catching up with you next time.